Man in the house. Sorry yesterday, guys. A little bit of technical difficulties that we've replaced today with unbridled awe. And talking about unbridled, I have literally unbridled after spending most of the morning writing an advertising campaign about wedding venues. And the number of puns that were falling from my mind were nothing short of expletive fabulous. Thanks. Whenever I'm writing stuff, I'm always checking out some influential sources. I always go straight to Wiki. I think I'm molting. Always go straight to Wikipedia because right at the top, Wikipedia's got a house style which has an absolute shit ton of links at the top, and those links are typically nuggets. Great things that will kind of inspire us to create content that is both informative, inspiring, and damn well influenza ridden if you're writing about pills. Hey, so few things today before I get stuck into skills to win, because you're here. I'm assuming you're here. If you're not here, you blimmin' well should be. You want to find out how to succeed at work in 2022. That is the year that we are in. It's remarkable. I still end my sentences with 2021 when I have the date in them. And so 2022, we're here. You know, let's face facts, guys, that we need to do what we can to hobble through and get to 2023 when we'll just be having yearly ingestions of some sort of vaccination that will ultimately get us crippled to the end of that year too. Anyway, so a couple of things. I might get through them later on, or I might just tease them and talk them through on Friday. And by the way, I hope you're keeping up to date with Celebs Go Dating. You know, every evening I think this series can't be as difficult to understand as last year, surely. And it just gets more complicated trying to get inside the heads of these celebs. I don't want to say brains because I'm not convinced they have them. Trying to understand more about what drives them to be like this. And the Geordie guy with Anna. Did you see that? I nearly fell off my very low sofa when he came in and propositioned her for sex. I'm like, seriously, dude, bit of decorum. This is Celebs Go Dating. These are here to kind of help you figure out the future path of your life. Don't neg on them. Which is a word that I learned from millennials. So there's that. I've also, well, there's a couple of things actually. I started a series on, you might remember I talked about the World Economic Forum having a technology to watch for 2025 and tipping all these great new ways of doing things that, you know, will power our changing world forward through change. So I've started writing like an informative, almost like a fact sheet, I guess, but with a little bit more husper associated with it on LinkedIn, starting with 4D printing. So here's the theory, and I sort of skated over this a few days ago, but bear with me on this. I have this theory that we're not going to get very much further than where we are right now unless we get better guides, better leaders, better inspiration. And, you know, I've trodden many corridors of academia and seen a lot of teachers at work, and I've been massively disappointed in the main with the people who are paid to educate. And I do not for one second blame the people, because they're the ones who are being under the cosh by their leaders, right? So here's my theory on that, is that teachers, by and large, are a bit like the police. I don't know if they are today, but they certainly were 10 years ago, where they spent the majority of time writing stuff up rather than actually doing the crime solving. So they would, if it was like a minor crime, they would probably turn a blind eye because they knew that when they got back to the station, they'd have to be there for 2 hours writing it up and filling in all the forms and stuff. Who wants to get involved with that? I didn't sign up to be a copper so that I could learn shorthand. No, I want to make our streets safer. So teachers go into the trade mistakenly believing that they're there to develop the next generation of achievers in all different forms and disciplines and realms. But what transpires to be in the world of academia is they'll come in, they'll learn the ropes, they'll do a bit of teaching, and then all of a sudden it'll be like, oh, can you deputise for that? Or, oh, can you get involved? We've got Ofsted coming up, so I'm going to need you to second yourself while doing your OG post for the next 6 months, because we need to get Ofsted outstanding, or all that bluster. So you end up not doing what you were paid to do and what you were taught to do as a teacher yourself. So I believe that the best people, our shining stars, our only hope for the future, are actually the practitioners out there who are doing what they're doing through passion, because technicians are where we need the most resolve and strength these days. And do we have that? No, we don't. And why don't we have that? Because we're not getting the education and the practical experience to carry it through and to become the technicians of the future. So I think that the future of education is going to lie in fully immersive experiences that are going to be led by people who are actually doing this stuff day in, day out. They're the change makers, they're the taste makers, they're the people who are showing industries what needs to be done. Their horizon scanning and their time horizons as well are a lot different to teachers. Teachers are probably looking ahead, whereas people who are in the thick of it right now need to know and do know that skills are needed in this particular place, and they're needed right now. So look, this series that I'm started today with 4D printing. I'm hoping to get some bright minds on side as well, because I want to identify the people that we need to look to who are going to know this stuff inside out, so that the World Economic Forum, by the time we get to 2025, we're going to have the right teaching in place, we're going to have the right people in place who are interested in taking these technologies forward. That's my hope, that's my theory, that's my goal, that's my gambit, and that's why this series started today. As I say, all about 4D printing. It's on my LinkedIn feed if you feel the need. I can't say I blame you if you don't. But the main thrust of today, and you've got access to this for the first time by watching this, depending on where you're watching it, because we're on YouTube, we're on LinkedIn, we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter. Depending on where you're watching it, you might already be able to flick through these sides. So you're cheating. You know what I'm going to say, or you kind of do, because they're mostly photos. But I'm going to flick through a few of what I believe are the skills that you need right now to thrive in your job. Chances are you've probably already got them, but if you haven't, this might be useful, because I'll be peppering it with my own experiences. You know, I've worked for a long time, so I know how some of these things work and some of them don't. Right, okay. So my first tip is humility and emotional intelligence, and being thankful to the people around you whose shoulders you stand on to become the giant at work, right? And this is especially pertinent while we're in remote working, although based on what Sajid Javed said, and obviously led by our questionable guy at the top, Bojo, next Thursday, so that's the 27th, we're going to be moving out of Plan B. So by the end of next week, we'll be back in offices to varying degrees. Really exciting. But being thankful, I think, is the number one skill that separates you from all your peers, the vast majority of your peers. Let me explain how this works. And again, I wrote about this on LinkedIn, so this is very recent, very raw to me. And just today, give you an example as well. Lots of people around us are doing lots of great work, but not lots of people around us are getting respected and recognised for that. And I'm not talking about stuff like annual awards, because we're engineered to aim towards that, and we know in our heart of hearts that we're not going to win it, because there's a lot of politics at play in these corporate award ceremonies that we have internally and obviously externally. It depends on how many tables your organisation has bought. You know, let us be clear on this. Awards in the main are rigged. Truth. Fact. So we have to instate our own awards, our own micro awards, I believe, that will not only reflect well on us, but will gain a much better morale for our team and for the company, and help us get closer to achieving these accolades that are indicated by more customers or more sales or more repeated sales. CLV, customer lifetime value, look it up, it's interesting. So being thankful to me is just dropping a colleague a line when they've done something really good or something nice, something out of the way. Say they've helped somebody at lunchtime. I really like what you did there. Or give them a call, jump on Zoom, or do what I did and send a card. That really is something super, super special. Tom Peters, if you've, I think it's In Search of Excellence is one of his books, The Excellence Dividend. He's written some fabulous books about how we can be better ourselves and in conjunction with the rest of our team. Drop my card and just say, listen, I was really impressed with what you did, or thanks ever so much for completing that project, or thanks. It doesn't have to be a grandstanding thing. It can be something relatively small, something trivial that's just made you go, oh, do you know what? I haven't appreciated that person enough. Appreciate the people around you is, I think, key to success. Just today, I dropped an email to somebody who just said, listen, thank you for, we've been trying to get this process working more smoothly. And it is. And I dropped a line to one of the key protagonists just saying, listen, thank you for this because it's made all of our lives easier. It's made things quicker, which means we can get more done. And it also means that we can spend more time on the good stuff and getting great stuff done. Came back, absolutely delighted. Clearly not been recognised before for what is great work in difficult circumstances. Win-win. So that's really important. So yeah, I'd just say, just try it out. Just drop an email this afternoon to somebody. Just say, listen, thank you. Active listening, so important. I don't think anybody is great at this, but I know we can all be better. And active listening is simply when you're in a meeting, or heavens above, if you've had the opportunity to dodge a meeting, it means you can listen to your Spotify playlist, because who wouldn't rather do that than be in a meeting? But if you're in a meeting and you want to get the most from that session, it's all about being intent. It's all about switching all your devices off, and it's going a lot further than that. It's about, ironically, in a meeting environment, speaking. And what that is to recite what you have heard to make clear for yourself and for others around the table or around the ping pong table, whatever the freaking modern way of doing meetings is these days. Because it's been that long since I've been in an office, okay? Going back soon. More on that. TBC. Yeah, so if you can sort of recap on what people are saying just to make clear, because you've probably heard this thing that the best way to learn is to teach. So if you're reading some clumsy text and you're trying to get clear or you're trying to understand it or trying to remember it, first of all, use something like Obsidian, which is like a personal knowledge manager, which is totally free right now, by the way. And you can sync it up with things like Dropbox and your phone so that wherever you're updating it, it's updating it everywhere universally. But so knowledge management, so you read the book, I'm reading a book right now, Masters of Scale by Reid Hoffman. It's taken me a while. But I'm typing stuff in that expresses my feelings about it, my interpretation of it, because that's how I learn. You're not going to learn through somebody else's lens. So same rules with active listening is that if you're able to express what you've heard and get validation for that, and also it makes other people feel heard. So active listening, really the key to all this is making people around you feel like they are being heard. Really important. This is all about setting checkpoints or milestones and not being overawed by the challenge that lies ahead, especially as we start a new year now in 2022. So there's something that's floating around these days. It's becoming increasingly more important to us all called OKRs, which is objectives and key results. And essentially what that means is at the top of your organization, you'll have a mission and a vision and some very, very high level objectives. Now, at each level, say you've got quite a hierarchical organization, at each level, that leader is responsible for distilling those top level OKRs into OKRs that specifically relate to the work of her team. And you go down the chain and that's broken apart and pulled back together in a way that is expressed, that is understood by the rest of the teams, right? So you get to my level, sort of one above the bottom, pond life. And it's like, right, Dave, so we know the organisation has got to make £3 million savings this year and has also got to achieve £6 million of additional revenue. You're a writer, so what your objectives are is to create 10 new content hubs that focus on 3 of our key archetypes, customer personas, and work with the contact center to understand what their challenges are and address those challenges and those weaknesses, turn those weaknesses into strengths using these content hubs. And as a result of those content hubs, because that's just very nebulous, isn't it? That's just work to be done. What's the outcome? As a result of those, I want to see an increase in the number of transactions directly attributed or attributed in part to those content hubs by 10% this year. That's an OKR. That is an OKR. That's an objective and that's a key result. Wow. So milestones, checkpoints to me, is make your job realistic. Don't fear the future. Only fear what you physically cannot control. And everything that you control, that's the Stoic mindset, isn't it? That's the Stoic way. It's what you see, what you do, how you feel, and what you say. Those are the only 3 things in the world that you can control. So when it comes to checkpoints, be very, very clear on what your objectives are and set yourself some micro tasks to get you there. And that's up to you. The onus is on you. It's like, okay, I've got to create 10 new content hubs. Where do I start? Well, with the first one. How do I start with that? I set in place some simple processes that I can replicate so that once I've got it right for content hub number 1, I can do it for 2 to 10. This is so important. I had a conversation, and it was a little bit gripey the other day, where a peer of mine was suggesting that we were oversimplifying things and that could cause degradation in quality. Well, I think that's bullshit. So this year, and to make your job easier, and the skill that you're going to need is to simplify what you do so that other people understand it better. I worked with a fantastic science communicator back at Manchester Met whose job was communication of science, to help people understand science. I thought that was genius, because if people are not entwined with your way of thinking or the philosophies of science or the science of science, then they're going to struggle to get involved. Whereas if you can break it down into ways that people understand, chances are you're going to get more people on your pathway. You're going to sign more people up to next year's course. Brilliant, genius idea. But simplicity from our point of view is just about breaking it down to first principles. So seeing all the component parts that matter in what you're doing and using those as the foundation for your explanation. So if you're going to go out and talk about, if you're going to try and help your boss understand what you do so that next year you can apply for funding, or next year you can get a course as part of your CPD, you've got to architect your future here. But the only way you're going to do that is by oversimplifying in this thing. I think it's a good way. Oversimplifying everything you do so that everybody around you can understand, and everybody as well can tune in and get the most from it and enjoy lots of value from it. How I've done that in the past is to set up a series of workshops, or Microsoft Teams. I set up a community of people, and I made it kind of a little bit of a lead magnet. I enticed people in by giving them promises that they would learn X, Y, and Z, and this would help them do their jobs better. Anything you do doesn't matter unless what you do is helping somebody else do what they do to a higher level, or quicker, or with a smile on their face. So think about how you can contrast and compare the two. What's their situation? What's your situation? What's the tool set and the skills that you have? And how can you use those, simply explained, to help person Y be better at what they do? This is key. Super focused, hyper vigilant on what you do. I think this year, more than ever, is all about making sure that we know exactly what we're doing. And I think a lot of people forget that, or a lot of people fear to ask the question, making it sound like they're dumbing down on themselves, making it sound like they're underselling themselves. If you're asking the simple questions and the dumb questions, then surely people are going to think, oh, is it right for the job? That's nonsense. I'll tell you something, if you're getting to the position where you can't do your job because you didn't ask a question about some of the skills that you're expected to have, then you're much more likely to be in the firing line than if you didn't ask in the first place. So I want you to get your scope out, be the sniper for your own career, and start taking out the competition in a very graceful way by understanding exactly what it is that you've been brought in to do. You need to trim the fat. And by that, I mean slim down on what you're doing, refine your processes, get clear on what it is that you want to achieve, and focus purely and simply on that alone. If you do one thing this year and it's really good, people could not have asked for more from you. I think too often we try and do too much. I've done too much, taking 10, 12 things on at a time and juggling, spinning plates, seeing them crash to the ground. It's not going to work anymore. Nobody's going to appreciate you. Nobody's going to appreciate it. People are more ruthless. And talking about the World Economic Forum and its top technologies for 2025, we're never going to get there unless we know what's our one true path and staying loyal to it and staying on it all the way. And that's it, guys. That's the only thing that I wanted to share with you today. And I hope you enjoyed it, because I did. And remember, Dave at wordandmouth.com, at Dave Thackeray on Twitter. If there's anything you want on Thacknology, if there's any topics you want to discuss, if you just want to celebrate the fact that it's Friday, jump on board, because I'll be there with you. And I hope you have